Good evening and welcome to the Canadian Football Fanatics Weekly Show. Blake and I coming at you once again on a Wednesday night at 6 p.m. I was going to say sharp, 6:03 sharp to talk some more Canadian football as we do every week here on the channel, talking all things CFL, of course, focusing on our BC Lions. But Blake, how are you doing, buddy? And thanks for joining me tonight.
I'm doing good, Cole. Yeah, no, it's definitely fun. The sun's shining. It's been pretty hot over here on the mainland. I'm sure you've been experiencing that on the island as well. It's pretty nice, but football season, we're getting closer and closer. The youth sports is going to be starting up soon. Junior football starts next week. Yeah, I see you repping your Raiders. The Rams start the year with a tough test in the Okanagan, so it's gonna be fun. Not that it hasn't been already, but it's gonna be even more fun, I should say.
Yes, my man. As you mentioned, has been a scorcher out the past week or so, I would say. Have been definitely feeling it at work. That being said, though, I think I would much rather be working in the heat rather than the freezing cold temperatures.
Absolutely.
I'm more of a wuss when it comes to working outside, getting my hands cold, my feet cold. Don't love that. So, little heat, as bad as it suck, or as bad as it is, I'd rather that than the cold. That's for sure. So, let's get into it without further ado. Blake, as always, we'll start off with 3 minute drill. But before we do, just a little reminder: we're gonna have Coach Phil join us here in a moment, in about 25 minutes, around 6:30. He'll join Blake and I to preview this weekend's game on Saturday, the BC Lions at Saskatchewan, or excuse me, the Saskatchewan Roughriders at BC Lions. Obviously, Coach Phil, CFL fan, but obviously, I believe his allegiance are to Saskatchewan and the Riders. So have him on, get his opinion. I know he loves BC too and Vernon Adams. So I'm excited to see and hear what he is thinking about the game. But Blake, let's get into it, my man, and get to properly fixed the 3 minute drill this week on the show, where we quickly recap last week's action in 3 minutes or less. So let's get into it. Timer set. And we can begin. So last Thursday, more specifically, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, led by new starting quarterback Shea Patterson, taking over at quarterback for Trevor Harris after he was placed on the 6 game injured list. And the Riders stay undefeated, taking out Cameron Dukes and the Toronto Argonauts. Obviously, rough afternoon for Mr. Cameron Dukes, threw 4 interceptions. I think a few of those are obviously maybe a team interception. Don't want to fault one guy or another. You could say it was a little bit of a high ball, I think, on a few of them. And then, some other ones I think Coxie might want to come down with as well. So just overall, not the greatest showing for Toronto, and they fall to 2-2 on the season. On Friday night, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, we won't hear Blake say Winnipeg Blue Bombers no more, get their first victory over not the with the Dustin Crum, led at quarterback for the Ottawa Red Blacks. And obviously, unfortunately, we saw Drew Brown go down with, I don't know if it was officially announced as a concussion or a neck injury. I know it looked like he was kind of a little bit flexing his neck as well, but obviously took the late hit from, I believe it was Retta Karamdi, Winnipeg Blue Bombers linebacker, and unfortunately left the game, I believe, late in the first half, and Dustin Crum finished the game from there, and Winnipeg got their first victory of the season. So on Saturday, we saw Montreal trail for the first time all season. I believe coming into the game, they had trailed for a total of 5 minutes, trailed for a majority of the game versus Calgary Stampeders, and they come storming back to take it late, set up by Towson Philpott. Obviously, Keon Julian Grant obviously got a touchdown as well. The Canadian duo receivers continue to impress, as well as I think it might be even a trio now with, Cole Speaker in there has been impressive throughout the first 5 games of this season as well. So on Sunday, we saw our BC Lions steamroll the Hamilton Ticats and move to 4-1 on the season, led by VA Justin McKinnick, Alex Hollins, and William Stanback. And that offense were on fire from start almost to finish. I know they didn't get the ball too much in the third quarter, not too much really in the second half, to be honest, but They were able to salt away the game there in the fourth quarter. I really liked the drives they were able to put together, especially on the back of William Stanback and his impressive showing as well. And that will conclude this week's a 3-minute drill, Blake, with about 15 seconds to spare. But as always, Blake, excuse me, I will pass it back to yourself, and I will. Is there any thing that stands out to you on last week's action?
Yeah, no, just the obvious thing is the Drew Brown injury, I should say. He is in concussion protocol. I have been able to confirm that through social media and whatever. I believe he was limited at practice today, so I believe he did practice a little bit, but I know he's also still in concussion protocol. So it was determined a concussion for Drew Brown, and yeah, as you said, unfortunately, I can no longer call them Winnipeg. They did win a game, so I have to give them credit there. But the other game that really surprised me was the Calgary Montreal game. As you mentioned, Calgary led for almost the entirety of that game, and it wasn't until a Walter Fletcher touchdown with a minute almost exactly left on the clock that the Alouettes were finally able to, what I believe was, take their first lead of the game, and were able to kind of salt it away from there.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, can no longer call them Winnipeg no more. One thing I love to see, I went back and forth with a few Bombers fans online. I know, Brady Oliveira came into the season a little banged up with some injuries, missed a significant amount of time during training camp, missed a game already this season. But for me, I know I really enjoyed the usage and seeing Brady Oliveira be utilized not only in the run game but as well as passing the ball out of the backfield. I believe he had up over 20 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Finally got over 100 yards for the first time, and I think was a catalyst of why they got their first victory of the season. And you know why I kind of mentioned. I know Shane mentioned last week of, if Winnipeg were to get a victory, they're right back in the thick of things, and I think it sets up an even bigger matchup versus Calgary this week. If they beat Calgary, they leapfrog Calgary in the standings. If they beat Calgary by more than 3 points, they leapfrog Calgary. Obviously, Calgary already has the victory over them by 3 points, thanks to a Rene Paredes field goal in overtime. So already a close game, and I think Winnipeg will be feeling a little bit of momentum after getting their first victory, a little bit of swagger, if you will. And I think honestly they're going to get another victory on, is it Friday night,
Friday.
versus Calgary, and I think they'll get right back in the thick of things. Now, do I think they're going to be able to get back to the Winnipeg that we know and love or hate, depending on who your allegiance is? I don't
Coach
believe
Phil
so
loves
because
them, I know that.
yes, I don't believe so. Just because of, I think, of a few of the injuries and situations that they're in. I love what I've seen from William Jefferson lately. I think he's starting to turn it on, but I don't believe there's anybody, a lot of passengers, and I don't think there's anybody riding shotgun with him, able to affect the other team's quarterback, get to the other team's quarterback. And I think that's something that's hampering them defensively, and then offensively, not having Dalton Schoen come back. Obviously, it seems like Kenny Lawler should be returning soon. I know he was placed on the 6 game after week 1, so should be returning here in the next few weeks. But receiving core. But obviously lost Rashid Bailey already in the offseason, stuff like that. So just not the same receiving core that I think we were accustomed to in the last previous years, like I was mentioning. And I think that's why they won't be able to get back to maybe the form of old. But I think they're right in line to be in place for that third place in the West, and maybe even catch Saskatchewan or BC, depending on who falls off down the stretch, because we still are only 6 weeks into the season and a lot can happen. And unfortunately, injuries are going to happen as well. So things will
No, no,
change.
everyone's gonna stay healthy. Injuries aren't a thing, Cole.
We can cross our fingers on that one. But before we get to our guest, I will tease and kind of I guess shameless plug, as well as I don't believe I informed the people that probably didn't read my article. But I came out with my CFL Power Rankings 2.0 for those that aren't or didn't see. And I originally started out doing them in article form for 13th Man Sports, and just given with my schedule and stuff like that, I found it a little bit hard to uh, take a little bit more time to write articles as well as not being the best at articles, so them taking me a little bit more time. I found with being able to whip together a quick graphic and put together a 20-25 minute video explaining myself rather than in written form would be a little bit better for myself personally. So that's what I decided to do. But what I realized is I don't think I filled the people in on the second time around of this only being a month to month thing, not a weekly thing. So I think a few people were a little bit confused on that. But just to clarify, that is my bad for not putting it in the graphic or in kind of some of the messages on social media. Just to clarify from now on, I had the 1.0 in June, 2.0 in July, we'll have 3.0 in August, and then so on and so on throughout the season. So look forward to that and let me know what you think. I know I was already getting a few comments,
Yeah, I
criticizing
have
some
a
of my
question
picks.
for you, Cole.
Yeah,
So I was a good co-host, and I looked at your power rankings. Now, almost everywhere has the Riders ahead of the Lions right now, and this week is kind of going to be the determining factor in that. So, why did you or decide to go with the Lions ahead of the Riders?
I think this is a perfect segue into our guest that'll join us here in a moment. But for me personally, I think um, I'm excited to talk about it with like I mentioned, Coach Phil here in a little bit. But the matchup I'm looking forward to this weekend is obviously the BC Lions offense versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders defense, who I think arguably maybe you could argue that both of them are maybe the best units in the CFL. Obviously, the Lions being one of the better offenses. I think the Riders so far this year have proved that their defense is up there in terms of being the best. They're taking the ball away like crazy, which is never a good sign.
Plus 10.
Although VA has been pretty good with the ball. If you're able to get some pressure on them, combined with that secondary and some of those playmakers back there, especially I know Roland Milligan had 2 interceptions last weekend, moved up to the league leader with 3. So, you know, impressed with them. I think they kind of cancel each other out. Um, I've liked what I've seen from the Riders offense when it's led by Trevor Harris. Obviously, Shea Patterson, no shade to him, he's still a young guy learning the CFL, first time starting and being kind of a leader of a franchise for a few weeks while Trevor Harris is down. But um, and I guess this is tough because Trevor's not really in there, and I think it's a little bit of a different story with him in there because then you could argue where I'm kind of going is I think offensive and defensively, they cancel each other out. That being BC's offense and Saskatchewan's defense. I think BC's defense is slightly better than the Riders' offense as of now, and that's why I have the edge to BC. Special teams obviously goes, I think, to Sean White and what he's been able to do so far this season. Um, and that's just personally why I have them. Obviously, you could say maybe a little bit of homerism, I guess, but I just honestly believe that as well. Obviously, BC with the loss and Saskatchewan yet to lose this season, so a lot of people, power rankings also aren't a record or like aren't a thing to show a record, right? They're, I think, for teams throughout a long 18-game season, right? You're going to lose some games that you don't think that maybe you should have lost, or maybe you lose to a team that last year we saw Ottawa with Dustin Crum beat Winnipeg in Winnipeg. Things happen through an 18-game season, right? So you lose games that you shouldn't. I think that's one kind of that BC would like back in week 1, and I think they could arguably be 5-0 right now. But that being said, they lost, so you can't really argue that, right? So I'm just personally going with BC because I think they're the better team as of now. But that's up for debate because I think Saskatchewan is up there as well, and I think they can prove on Saturday that they're toe for toe with BC as well. So I think that's probably a good segue, Blake, to personally bring in our guest right now, and that is the content king himself, the one and only Coach Phil. Coach, what's going on, my brother? How you doing? And thanks for joining us.
I love you, Blake.
Love you, man. I love you.
What's going on, Cole? What's going on, everybody? Everybody good?
Oh,
Yeah, we're
everybody's
good. We're
great,
good.
Coach.
Living, man. Living, man. So I heard
Good,
you
good.
chose BC over Sask in the
Yeah,
power.
Yeah, correct.
Why?
Talk to me, Coach.
I,
Talk
I,
to
I
me.
don't under, I don't understand the logic behind that. I don't like. Last time I checked, we're undefeated, and you guys have 1 L. How's that work?
Yeah, but where's your quarterback right now?
And I don't even want to use that argument, but so for sure. We have to hold that L. I'll hold that L for sure. And unfortunately for us, we haven't played a bye,
Yeah.
which is the unfortunate part of the CFL with the uneven teams and having to have bye so early. But that being said, we got 4 victories just like y'all. We have in the standings 8 points just like y'all. We sit atop the standings just like y'all. So I know we still have a loss. But that being said, like I said, offensive and defensively, BC's offense versus Saskatchewan's defense, I think they cancel each other out. They're both top units in the CFL. Where I think the edge is, I think BC's defense is just slightly better than Saskatchewan's offense right now. I know you're gonna, and I because I would enjoy your side of things. I don't think, the run game in AJ Ouellette has hit their stride quite what maybe fans had expected going into the season. I think they still are kind of working their way into form this season. I think AJ would say that himself that they would want a little bit more running the ball. And I think that's more of a team effort more so than anything, right? I don't think that's a credit to the offensive line playing bad by any means. Sometimes just the holes aren't there. You know what happens, coach, right? Other
Yeah.
teams paid as well, right? They're not going to roll over and let AJ kind of take over, especially with all the expectations and stuff like that. So teams are ramping up to stop that, and I understand that, but I don't think that they've really played up to standards. And I think you've seen on the lines that we're able to run the ball a little bit more effective than we have in the past, and I think that gives us an advantage come later in the season. Now, like I mentioned about Trevor and some of those injuries, right? With Trevor not being in the lineup, TJ Lee and Keon Hatcher are on the verge of coming back, Coach Phil, and that defense is about to get a little bit better, and that offense is about to get a little bit scarier. That defense is about to get a little bit better. Now, whether they come back to form is one thing, right? Because I've said, Blake can back me up on that. I've said that the whole time that it is very quick. It is 8 months turnaround, and I definitely holding my breath that everything goes according to plan. But that being said, it is an Achilles injury. It has happened to both of them before. I believe both of them are over the age of 30. Now that's not old by any means, but it is getting seasoned in pro football. So those boys coming back, I think, even makes the team even better, and that's why personally I got BC over the Riders as of now. And I think that's why it's a good thing, for the power rankings as well to get people talking, right, as of now, right? And the power rankings are going to change throughout the season. The Riders, I believe, were fifth for me coming into the season and have moved up to third, rightfully so. I respect them, and it is almost somewhat of a coin flip, with BC and Saskatchewan. Like I said, I just had to put BC over Saskatchewan as of now because I think they have a little bit of an edge on defense over the Riders' offense. But talk to me, Coach. Let me know how you feel. If you think I'm crazy, if you think I'm, maybe somewhat you agree with a little bit, you think I'm crazy on maybe a little bit as well.
I want to hear what Blake got to say. I'm gonna let both the BC guys talk. I got my stuff right here. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna let Blake say what he got to say.
All right, no, I agree with Cole. Like I've thought all year that the Lions should have been ranked higher than the Riders, and the only reason I say that is because of last season. Like y'all did not win a game after Labor Day, and you guys had a really good start last year. I believe you were 3-1 after 4 games last year, and then Trevor got hurt. And there's one big difference, and I know what that difference is. His name is Corey Mays. His name is not Craig Dickinson. Like you and I have a lot of the same friends over in Regina. Everybody knows Craig Dickinson was the problem in Regina. Like if he was not coaching, y'all would have had 8 or 9 wins last year, and y'all would have made the playoffs. 100%. I absolutely believe that. However, with Trevor Harris going on the 6-game injured list again, I don't trust Shea Patterson enough. I don't think that he won that game against Toronto last week. I think it was more the defense than anything else.
You good? Can I
I'm
go?
good. Yeah, you can go. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. First of all, I don't disagree. I can't disagree with that at all. When you got the backup in, and I've said it before, I'm not the biggest Shea Patterson fan dating back to Michigan. You know what I'm saying? I don't see Shea being the reason why we win the game. I see that both teams, and piggybacking on what Cole said, Both defenses are the same, except we've been more aggressive in the turnover battle.
Yeah.
But one thing y'all do have, Ben, how do you pronounce his last name? Haladic. Second in the league in tackles. Actually, first in the league.
And he missed a game.
Mm-hmm. And I look at our defense, our defensive play wise, we've got two guys that are in the top 10 when it comes to as Jameer Thurman and Roland Milligan. Outstanding. They bring the aggressiveness to the defense that we lacked last year. It's gonna come, and RP's my OG. You know I love RP. You know I love his defense. And when RP talks, you shut the hell up. But BC just doesn't look as aggressive. I can't even count the stats for us because that was Trevor. You can sit there and say, oh, we're averaging 32 points a game. Oh, we're doing this. Oh, we're doing that. But where's the run game? I was at the game. I was at the game against Toronto. We couldn't run for shit. Pardon my French. But we couldn't run the ball for anything. And I feel like when you talk about establishing the run, that's something that you guys have done. You guys actually unlocked a new level for your offense with William Stanback catching the ball. For us, we haven't really established that. Can AJ do this? Can AJ do that? We're 5 weeks into the season. If we still got to question what AJ can do, put somebody else in. And I love AJ. But there's got to be chemistry on that offensive line. Now, for our defense, both defenses mirror each other so much, especially in the front line. Whose defensive line can get to the quarterback? Neither team really has gotten sacks like that. It's been the secondary having to do most of the work, especially with, I think for me, one of the aces in the hole that we've had is Coach Philip Daniels, the defensive line coach. A lot of people don't know he had to work with only 5 defensive tackles last week against Toronto and still got the job done. Our defense is going to be the key to us winning the game. We got to get Vernon off the field. His efficiency is amazing right now. You got William. Alexander's balling out. Justin's balling out. But we as a defense got to control. We got to get him off the field. Vernon's kicking ass first downs. Second down, Vernon's kicking ass. I rarely see you guys ever get off the field on a short drive. Vernon's going for big plays. We got to shut that down. We got to do something. I'm not too afraid as far as also, we got to stop William Stanback, man. 311 rushing yards already, averaging 4.6. He's got 7 runs over 10 yards. AJ's only got 4. He hasn't had a run over 20 yards. And I know I'm talking, but like,
talk, coach.
Well, one thing I've noticed,
we like to hear it.
Well, one thing that frustrated me a lot of times is like watching us this season so far as the run game for AJ. You can't run the ball the way Toronto ran because we don't have the same offensive line as Toronto.
Yeah.
You got to find your blocking scheme and find where AJ is going to find a crease and get at least 3 or 4 yards. 1 yard, 2 yards is not enough. We've got to find whether it's stretch plays, whether it's between the guards, whether we got to pull a couple guys. Hell, if we got to pull the center, we do it. We can't call the same plays we call for Trevor with Shea. You understand what I'm saying? It's the offense is different. Shea's not going to throw it downfield like Trevor. We're not going to get the big 20, 30, 40-yard plays. We got to run the ball. If we establish the run, we can get some screens. We can get some outs. We can get some zigs. We can attack the middle of the field, but you got to mix up the play calling. You got to play to Shea's strength. Hell, he scored a rushing touchdown. Surprisingly.
I was just going to say that, Coach. The one difference between Shea and Trevor, Shea is mobile. Trevor is not. Trevor is a 100% pocket passer. He will not run. He will stand there for 10 seconds until he gets sacked.
Oh, my God. And that's what kills us, man. And even looking at your offense, the weapons. The weapons are now. Originally, I thought it was just a 2-man offense with Justin and Alexander. But y'all got pieces all over. Earhart. Earhart's nice.
Eberhard, Eberhard, yeah,
he's nice. You know,
he's consistent. He's consistent.
Oh yeah. And even like for us offensively, if you're gonna run the ball, you got to get the play action going. You have to. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We got Sean coming back. We still got KSB. We've got other people that are going to step up and make plays, but Lastly, I'll say I love Vernon. Y'all know secretly I love BC. I got a little love for BC. But if we can get Vernon off the field and whoever wins the turnover battle, it's going to take whoever gets about 2 to 3 interceptions and can force at least one fumble and can control the feet, control the game. We don't have to. We can't. You can't play BC and play to their pace. Vernon's trying to just we going tempo.
Like he's back at Oregon.
Oh yeah, we can't match that. Vernon's amazing. Vernon's going to win MOP this year. I already know it. It's locked in for him. He plays the pace he's going. He gets that 6,000. He gonna get it. Cody Fajardo might have something to say about that. Yeah. But for us, get Vernon off the field. Analytics say that Vernon is kicking ass right now. I think we just got to be aggressive. We can't be afraid to go get the quarterback. We got to throw a couple certain blitzes that is going to help us in our advantage. Get CJ Revis involved. Get Jameer involved. Hell, throw a DB blitz in there. We just can't be conservative. That's it. That's my view. That's it.
I agree, Coach. I think this game comes down to maybe a turnover or two late in the fourth quarter. I think as much as people are maybe expecting or hoping for a high-scoring game, I think this might be a little bit of a closer one, just due to the fact, like we've been mentioning, that Task defense is tough as hell. I expect them to do kind of what you're hoping for and get BA in that offense off the field probably a little bit more than I'd hope, but I expect it to be a little bit of a closer game late into the fourth quarter, and maybe it's a gamble on third down where a team goes for it and they don't get it because the defense makes a stop, or it's a late turnover, whether that be an interception or a fumble. I think that's what might determine the game on Saturday. But before we get going, let's say hello to a few people in the chat. I know they're excited seeing Coach Phil on here, but hey, John in West Vancouver. I know Jay's watching as well in Nanaimo. Excited for the game on Saturday. For anybody that's there, though, come say hi to Blake and I know Brian as well. Brian's actually a Riders fan, if I'm not mistaken. They're everywhere. But, even Bobby DeBow, world record holder, the man himself. But we also have Brian chiming in here a little bit as well. You know, Sean Bain being back helps Patterson by giving him a reliable target with KSB as well.
Can I add something also that I want to say that's kind of been sticking in my craw? Two things. Number one, I'm just going to say it directly to Rider fans because I love them. I love us. But we got to stop thinking every single time we're on a run, like we got a good record, it's going to be 2013 again. It's not. This is and I know somebody gonna clip it. Somebody gonna say something. No, I'm just being serious. It's not 2013. When I saw that on Instagram, it's like the last time the Riders were 4-0, this was happening in the world, and then they said we won the Grey Cup. I get that, but slow down, because last time we got all hyped up about 3-1. Blake said it best. After LDC, we didn't win a single game. So let's just pump the brakes a little bit. We can go 5-0, 6. We're gonna have to drop one at some point. We might drop 2 or 3. We got to see BC again, which I'm very excited to see you guys when I come to BC in August, when we play Winnipeg. But I don't know. I something about that just always gets under my skin when they talk about 2013. They never talk about 07, but it's something about 2013. Like, oh, we're 3-1. Oh, we're 4-0. This is 2013 vibes. No, just it's 2024. Let's calm down. One game at a time. Let's get better. Let's not, because you know what happens. You lose 6 in a row. Get rid of Mace. Get rid of everybody. No, we got the right guy. Everybody relax. 1 week at a time. If you know football, one game at a time. Stop thinking so far. Let's not think about BC. Let's not think about BC place just yet, man. We haven't even gotten to LDC yet. Let's relax. And I think the last thing I want to say to y'all, man, is what the hell is going on up in Scambleton?
Oh my gosh.
I have a few CFL questions actually for you, Coach. But Brian says, "Let us be delusional."
Celebrating a touchdown down 16 with
hold on.
No time on the clock. No time.
Why? Like why? Why? Like, what are you?
So
Go ahead, ask the questions, man. I got you. I
Okay,
gotta
wait,
answer.
Cole, before you go, because
yeah,
I
go
know
ahead.
he's in the chat right now. You just put him up on the screen. So, Chris, I know you're watching. I will see you on Sunday, young man.
Yeah, but Coach, aside from Scamilton, as they're properly called by yourself, but I'm curious, how have you liked kind of watching Montreal's dominance so far this season? Obviously, they're the reigning defending champions. They've really hit the ground running. Like you mentioned, I think Cody Fajardo, rightfully so, is in the conversation. I was talking last week with Blake on the show. Going into the game, I had it as a 1A, 1B type situation. After VA's performance, I think VA kind of slides into that, number one, maybe Fajardo's number two. That being said, it's not really taking anything away from Cody and his season. But how impressed have you been with Montreal this season?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all from what they were, the momentum that they had. Now they did lose Reggie, my guy Reggie Stubblefield, injury, the situation with Sean Lemon and all that. But guys have stepped up, and even Austin Mack going to the NFL. But we got to give credit where credit is due. Where Tyson Philpott stepped up
Yeah.
when in production wise, losing Austin Mack, he has showed it's between him and McInnes, who's the best Canadian receiver right now. It's disturbing. That they're putting up astronomical numbers right now and they're on pace. But I think the one thing people need to do also is let's not jinx them. Let's as a CFL fan base, let's not jinx Montreal, because they did that last year with Toronto and look what happened there. So just because a team has got some momentum going, like I said about us, let them play, let them do their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, Montreal's been, I feel like, atop the Eastern standings. We talked about Hamilton's struggles. As of now, who would you put maybe your confidence in rivaling Montreal in that Eastern division? Ottawa's 2-2, I believe. Toronto's, without, he who shall not be named as of now. But he'll be returning at some point and kind of be back behind center. Like you mentioned, I believe in Toronto a little bit more, I think, because of in the trenches, man. Offensive and defensive line. I know their defensive line is a little bit banged up right now with Serezna and Flo Hurumulade on the sixth game, but I think they're going to be just fine, especially with that offensive line and like I mentioned, who's coming back. But who would you put maybe your confidence in the Eastern Division as to who might be number two?
Wait, Coach, can I go first for this one?
Go ahead, brother.
Okay, so are we talking with or without Drew Brown?
We'll say with Drew Brown.
Okay, then I'm going with Ottawa.
Okay.
If they have Drew Brown, I think Ottawa is the team that rivals Montreal. Now, without Drew Brown, we saw almost a full season, and we'll have Shane on a little bit later in the show. Shane, if you're watching right now, I know you're not going to like my pick, but without Drew Brown, Dustin Crum is not the answer. Ottawa will stink.
Coach, who you got?
Well, if punk ass Chad Kelly is starting at, sorry, man, say his name. He who shall not be named, if he's starting at quarterback, Toronto's out. 9 weeks is way too long for a quarterback to come back and get his legs right, and they're going to eviscerate him. They're going to eviscerate that man. Now, I want to go with Ottawa, just like Blake. I have been high on Ottawa. I got a little soft spot for Ottawa on the east, but I don't, honestly, tell you the truth, I don't think Drew Brown's the answer. Okay. I don't. They're trying to do this the first few games, throwing the ball everywhere, and they didn't even get the run game involved. And they got one of the better running backs in the league right now. He stepped up. I'm high on their defense. Their defense mirrors Sask and BC. It's up there, but they got to get it together. I've been telling Adarius Pickett, get your defense together. Get your defense together, because the whole defense is nasty. If you look at on paper, Bryce Carter, Lorenzo Malden, Adarius Pickett, that linebacking core, that secondary, it's just like BC with names. So when you got names like that, you expect, and you paid all that money to get a Darius, you re-signed a lot of guys. Go make something happen. But I got Ottawa. If they let Cameron Duke start after, and I'm not even worried about that 4 interception game. It was what it was. We were balling. I like Cameron Dukes. Let him do his thing. I even like Brian Scott. I like him too. He should be number 2. Cameron should be number 1. Release he who should not be named.
I agree. Let's go to the West Coast before we get you out of here. What do you think about the dumpster fire? And give me your thoughts on Chris Jones and why he. I mean, if you disagree, he should be in Edmonton anymore. But what are your thoughts on what's going on in Edmonton? And they continue to find ways to lose. I know they were just on their bye week, so they're catching strays even on their bye week. Got fired on their day off, but tell me what your thoughts on Chris Jones and the Edmonton Elks are right now.
Well, you want me to sugarcoat or you want me to tell the truth?
Tell the truth.
Raw, uncut truth, coach.
Why the fuck is Geno Lewis not getting the ball?
I agree with that.
And I understand as far as an offense, you went and got Curly Gittins. I'm not knocking Curly. The only quarterback he's really had is MBT. I was not really high on MBT. Y'all know how I feel about him, but he's proven me wrong. But you got to spread the ball around. You've got one of the best, if not the best receiver in all of the CFL, one of the highest paid receivers, and y'all freezing him out because you already know it's going to be a contract year coming up for him. Ooh, I shouldn't say that, but I did. And Chris Jones, for a team that's going through so much crap as far as ownership, they should be bringing people in and out. They just went and got Sean Oakman. I don't understand.
And Derek Moncrief.
Moncrief, it's a pickup, but come on, like you sometimes you don't always have to go to the grocery store to cook some shit. You got shit at home. Use what you got in the cabinet, and you can make a great meal out of it. Every season, Chris Jones goes and gets people. And the funny thing is, I like Chris Jones. I like him as far as a human being. But if we're talking X's and O's football, this might be the last year. Everybody's job is on the line. They're going to get new ownership. Nobody's safe. And I would hate for them to lose a Geno for nothing. That's just, I don't understand. They're not even out of the games. They're close.
Yeah, which just might be more heartbreaking.
When they play, it's something about when BC and Edmonton play each other. I don't get it. I don't understand. It's always a dogfight, and I don't know. I just Edmonton's killing me right now, man. Get it together. Get Geno the ball. Feed Kevin Jones the ball too. Feed Kev Block, and stop. Just stop bringing extra people in and then releasing them. And why did they let go of my man Marlashon? That's what I want to know. Next question.
I agree. They don't for time on air, to be honest. But I honestly, the good people in Edmonton. There's some good people that root for Edmonton and cover Edmonton that deserve a lot better than what they've been watching the last few years. But Coach, lastly, before we get you out of here, just how excited are you to take? I guess you don't even watch the games live. I always forget about that because you're obviously wanting to react in the moment and with all your good content. But how excited are you for the game, and just any final thoughts on Saskatchewan coming out to BC for a nice early season heavyweight matchup?
I'm gonna tell you a little secret. My son got me watching games.
Ooh, I like it.
And so I moved recently, and so I was getting everything set up. I have to get a new green screen and all that. So when I went out of town to go to Regina, I already said I'm gonna take a couple days off. Not really I'm gonna miss this week's reactions. I'm back on it this week, and I got back home. He loves Vernon Adams. He's a BC guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the one that's the BC fan, right?
Yeah. So we actually watched BC against Scamilton.
Yeah.
Full game, and we watched Ottawa against Scamilton. I don't know when Scamilton plays. I'm gonna turn it on. But I'm loving what I'm seeing right now from everybody. This season, man, these last couple seasons have just been amazing. And hopefully we get a BC Sask West final. I think that's what it's going to come down. It's going to be a BC Sask West final. And whoever wins the next two matchups is going to have home field. Whoever has home field is going to the Grey Cup.
I agree, Coach. I think these matchups are going to be huge when it comes down to later in the season. Just like BC Winnipeg last year, everybody knew in the moment going in those games would matter down the stretch, and I think Saskatchewan and BC is that those two teams this year. So before we get you out of here, Coach, let the people know where they can find you on Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff, and like you mentioned, the reactions will be back this week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all can find me on YouTube, Coach Phil Reacts. Name's on the screen. Find me on Twitter at Coach Phil425. My Deep in the Game interviews that I be doing, Deep in the Game official on Instagram, Twitter, all that. Man, come follow me. Come mess with your boy. We out here. And fellas, y'all know how I feel about y'all. I appreciate y'all having me on. I'm gonna see you guys 3-4 weeks or so.
Yeah, about
Yep.
about a month from now, Coach.
About a
So
month from now. Yeah, August 18th.
yeah, always good chopping it up with you, Coach. Always good talking some Canadian football, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Take it easy, y'all.
Later, Coach.
Bye.
See ya.
All righty, that was Coach Phil, everybody, talking some BC Lions, Saskatchewan Roughriders, and then mixed in a little CFL there at the end. Looked like from everybody chiming in the chat, they enjoyed having Coach Phil on. So,
How many we
Coach,
got right now, Cole? How many we got?
we got 54 tuning in right now on Twitter, on YouTube. So I appreciate you guys so much. And actually, I don't believe I have thanked or announced yet, but we did hit 200 subscribers, Blake, before we
Let's
went live
go.
today. So a few days late, but all good. No worries on our end. Still hit the milestone of 200. Let's try to push for, maybe another 50 by, I don't know, sometime down later
Labor
in the
Day.
season. Labor Day, sure. Let's do that. I wasn't gonna, but let's do it. I think let's push for the moon or shoot for the moon, land on the stars is what they say, Blake. So,
Yeah.
let's shoot for the moon. Let's go for 250, Blake, by Labor Day.
Yep. Let's
All
do
right,
it.
let's go
We're
for
at July
250.
10th, so that gives us almost 2 months.
Yes, hopefully, with all the coverage throughout the rest of the month or so that we got until Labor Day, you guys will be ramping up the subscriber count. Hopefully, when we get down to Touchdown Pacific, like my man Jay is mentioning, 250 by Touchdown Pacific. Hopefully, I'm able to take a few days off work. Let's speak that into existence, folks, so that I can go down there and cover the Lions being on the island a little bit earlier. I know they're planning on coming over for almost like a week-long type festivities and having practice and stuff like that. Hopefully, for those that are, what's the pub show called?
BC Lions on tap.
BC Lions on tap. I'm really hoping that they're coming over on a Tuesday and doing a BC Lions on tap on the island because I always feel like I got a little bit of FOMO when I watch the replays of that and they're like at a bar and I'm like, man, I wish I could be there. That looks a lot of fun. So I
I
hope that they're
still
going to be
haven't
able to
even
do.
gotten to one yet.
Yeah, you should go one, dude. I can't believe
I
you haven't.
know.
That's
I
crazy.
know.
You have to go. But I hope they do that on the island. I'm not too sure I'm going to be able to pull off getting off Tuesday to Friday. I think that's probably unrealistic, but just to have it on the island, I think would be cool. My plan is to hopefully go down Thursday, cover practice of some sort on Thursday, and then be around the team on Friday, and then go to the game on Saturday. So should be a good time. Appreciate everybody for 200 subscribers. Let's go for 250 by Labor Day. Um, and my man Jay says, I'm still waiting for them to come to the quarterway. I agree, Jay. That would be sweet. Obviously, here in Nanaimo, BC, our little local pub just not up the road from me, but not too far from me. And I actually just went there a couple weeks ago after work with the bosses. And nice little spot. And I know Jay probably been waiting for a little bit of announcement, but just been busy and stuff like that and trying to recover after being I didn't anticipate getting a media pass this year and being able to go to most of the Lions games this year. So just been a little bit tired on the weekends. Last weekend or not last weekend, 2 Thursdays ago, coming back from the game and stuff like that. But I still will try to arrange um, a watch party at maybe Quarterway would be a good place. Or I'm thinking SIP, where we get together a group of us here on Vancouver Island and watch a CFL game that week. Obviously, probably won't be a Lions game, but maybe we'll kind of vote on social media somehow and see what a game of the week for somebody everybody on the island would want to watch all together, and we can meet up at Quarterway. So stay tuned for that. We can try to plan that still here in the future. I know BC is going to be on the road a lot in August, if I'm not mistaken, or after this Saskatchewan game.
After this week, yeah, 3
Yeah,
straight road games.
yeah. So stay tuned for that, Jay. Maybe we can do that during 3 straight road games, or I don't think they have a bye coming up in week. You
They
say
do.
8 or 10?
Lions. I think it's after the Calgary game, so it should be week 6, week 7, week 8.
Awesome. So I just seen we got a new subscriber, Bobby Dubbo, world record holder, just subscribed. My man, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Hopefully that's 201. And this can, I guess, with the bye week, Jay chimes in week 8, like you just mentioned, Blake. I was talking about the injury report, which I think we should go over quickly, Blake.
Yeah.
We had Josh Banks obviously left the game and was seen on the TV copy. Seemed to be kind of very didn't appear to be like a person that was hurt. He was interacting with his teammates on the sideline and stuff like that in some of the camera shots I saw in the fourth quarter versus Hamilton. So I didn't appear to be anything serious. Coach Campbell said today he should play. Christian Covington, on the other hand, is a TBD type situation. Gonna see how he's feeling in the next couple days, as well as Javon Katoy. The Banks, I forget what area of the body the injury was. Christian Covington was a lower back, and then Javon Katoy was ribs, which I believe was the original injury he sustained
Yeah.
earlier in the season. And he's 50-50. Coach Campbell said they want to see him practice at least once at some point this week. And then Thibaut Tobaye has to be medically cleared for some sort of injury that Coach Campbell said he could play, but he has to be cleared. I'm not too sure what that means exactly. That's just his quotes that were at practice. And then we also obviously have TJ Lee and Keon Hatcher, who have been full participants the last, I guess this is their second week now, who Coach Campbell said that TJ Lee is basically all green light to return in Calgary next weekend. He said Keon Hatcher possibly could maybe miss that game and return after the bye week. He said that's a very slight possibility, though. He said they both look great at practice. They both have not half-stepped by any means. So it's a great sign and good things to hear. We're not going to talk about anything negative, Blake. And we're going to move on to the last part of the injury report that I thought was pretty interesting. And if I'm able to stick around after the game and ask some questions to Coach Campbell and stuff like that, we had Michael Couture and David Neville come back to practice, and we were both full participants today. The amateur analyst in me wants to say that I believe Coach Campbell will stick with Tyler Packer and David Slugger. But that being said, I am amateur, so I honestly could be wrong as well. Like I mentioned on the post-game show, as well as actually I was on 3DB. Shout out to those guys, the 3 Down Bros. I know you met them. Hopefully I can link up with them at the next game here. I was mentioning to them as well, just kind of being interested to see who might when they come back. Because I knew it was getting to week 6 here when they could be eligible to come back and play. I don't believe they're eligible to come back and play on Saturday. I think this is like Keon and TJ last week, where they can open up their practice window, get a few reps early. I'm curious to see what is the decision with Michael Couture and Chris Slugger when they return to the lineup. Like I mentioned, I don't believe they're eligible to return this week. I think it's just getting their reps in at practice and getting their wind a little bit early. Like I mentioned, when you get on the 6th game, you can come back. I believe it's 2 weeks earlier before you can return to play. You can actually practice, so you can kind of get your wind back, start to get yourself in shape before you get thrown to the fire. So I believe that's kind of the same situation that these guys are going with, are in right now. And I don't think we should see them on Saturday, but if I can, I'm definitely going to ask Coach Campbell of what his decision is, in the future here. If Michael Couture is a highly paid offensive lineman, I believe he's a top 15 paid offensive lineman in the CFL. I think might even be one of the highest paid centers in the entire CFL. David Neville, on the other hand, like I mentioned on the post game show, if you guys missed that, you guys can go check that out as well on the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. I mentioned that I think Chris Slugger has rightfully just won out that job. I don't think David Neville is going to, come back in the lineup and start. I would expect him to get healthy and then be a healthy scratch from that point on. So I'm curious to see how that's handled, and will be something that I hopefully can ask Coach Campbell in the future. But what do you think is going to happen, Blake? Do you think Tyler Packer stays at center, and Michael Couture, who's a highly paid offensive lineman, will go to the bench?
Yeah, I think that is what will happen. Tyler Packer showed pretty well. It was kind of the announcer's jinx, if you will, because I know at the very beginning of the game on Sunday, I was listening to Julio and Moj, and then I got home and I turned on the TSN broadcast, and both the radio and the TV had been like, "Wow, Vernon Adams hasn't been sacked since week number 1," and then in the fourth quarter, he gets sacked on back-to-back plays. But yeah, no. Other than that, I mean, Tyler Packer showed really well. Obviously, as I just mentioned, the no sacks. There's been really no botched, or at least in my memory, no botched snaps, no kind of low snaps, anything like that. So that's helped VA a lot as well, and I think that'll definitely be to Tyler Packer's advantage.
Yes, excited to see. I'm rooting for the kid. They're both Canadian. Not too sure if Tyler Packers is an Alberta boy. Went to the University of Calgary. Mike Couture obviously is a BC boy. Went to don't remember what high school, but is an SFU grad
Yeah.
and a Lower Mainland resident. So, both Canadian guys. Rooting for them both, but sometimes unfortunately money talks in pro football, and I'm curious to see how that's handled because I think Andrew Pearson is kind of solidified himself in that role as that six offensive lineman, is able to play, as we saw a few weeks ago, that jumbo tight end package role where Javon Katoy is hurt this week. He's going to be able to fill that role once again. He also can come in and be that extra offensive lineman when you want to run the ball with William Stanback, which they've done in here in the last few weeks. So super cool. For Pearson, I think he's kind of solidified himself as well because he can play his natural position that he came into the CFL as center. He's been playing guard the last few years as a rotational type player, and you know the best thing about him, I know he's really ingrained in the community, but he knows his role. He's not a selfish type player. He's handled this transition as a starter for hasn't been a full time starter. He's started for a consecutive amount of games here and then there, and kind of gone back and forth from the bench. But he has no ego about things, and is very selfless, and a guy that you want on the team, especially because he's not a scrub by any means as well. He can come in and give you some valuable snaps as an offensive lineman as well, not just a extra offensive lineman in run situations or a gadget type extra offensive lineman when you want to throw in the ball. But curious to see because I think Pearson is that six offensive lineman. I don't see them dressing Couture as a reserve at that rate. So curious to see how that's handled. But before we get
Couture went
going,
to Centennial.
Centennial, my man. So Brian chimes in. He says, "I heard sales are good for the game Saturday. Riders fans helping with that, I'm sure." Yes, Brian. Unfortunately, I am preparing to see and
Lots of
hear a lot of
green.
green. But that being said, it is honestly pretty cool going to those games because it's just CFL fans that that the Riders fans are super diehard. They love their team, especially when you see them everywhere. I know a few guys that went to the Rolling Stones concert. They talked about, and I know JC Abbott mentioned it as well. Seeing the two fellows that were at the Rolling Stone concert in Vancouver with two Riders jerseys in the crowd. So they are truly everywhere, and they continue to impress in that way. But yeah, Jay chimes in. He says 28K sold so far. So yeah, should be good. Hopefully we can get up to 30,000. Brian, I will not smash one single watermelon. You have Scout's honor, you have my word. I will not touch or harm any watermelons at the tailgate. Um, Besides, Brian, I do have my media pass that day. I have to keep it somewhat professional. Can't I don't think smash too many watermelons, but I'm hoping to maybe consume a little bit of the pregame tailgate festivities and all that good stuff. I think it'll be a lot of fun and a good atmosphere on Saturday. So Blake, I'm curious, buddy, what are you thinking about? Like I mentioned, I think personally, offensively, BC offensively and Saskatchewan defensively kind of canceled each other out. Why I mentioned I think it's going to be a little bit more low scoring game. I think Saskatchewan has a real deal on defense, and then on defense for us and offense for them, I think is where it's going to come down to the who's going to win this game. But for you, what are your final thoughts when it's coming to this game on Saturday, and how do you think BC takes this one?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you put it that way because I do think that BC is the better team and that they will probably win the game. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Might be a last-second field goal or something like that. Um, and I think that the Lions VA will kind of have his way with the defense at the beginning, but Corey Mace will make some adjustments and kind of throw VA off. That'll allow the Riders back into the game, and then maybe same as last home game, it's a Sean White walk-off field goal type thing.
Muted, sorry. I agree with something similar to what you're saying, Blake. I see Jay chimed in perfect timing as you. He said Sean White for the win as well. And I think it's going to come down to a one-score game in the fourth quarter, like we've seen or been accustomed to this the CFL season, Blake. I believe Christina Costable posted the stat of, is it like 15 of 20 games have been decided by one
Yeah,
score.
in
So,
the last 3 minutes, yeah.
so crazy parity. We asked Julio last week when he joined us. Was that last week or 2 weeks ago? Might have been 2 weeks ago.
Last
2 weeks ago, I
no,
think.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, something like no, it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks
The
ago.
days are blend. The days are blending in. We're 6 weeks into the season, and it's just all steam ahead at this point, folks. And the shows are blending in. But when we asked Julio about the parody a few weeks ago, he thought the CFL was in a good place, and I think the CFL is in a good place with parody like this. You know, I saw Bobby was joking in the chat a little bit earlier about potentially maybe the CFL and the East maybe needing two crossovers this year, and whoever's the fourth and fifth place team in the West crossing over to get in the playoffs. But I think all jokes aside, as much as I do want to dump on teams or try not to dump on teams, but it's hard to with some of the state of the East in the last few years. Um, it is still early, right? And I think like we've seen with Saskatchewan in the last few years of starting hot and then finishing cold. Teams are going to start cold and finish hot down the stretch, like Montreal last year, right? Montreal came in the
Yep.
season ninth in the power rankings, not very great throughout the start and middle portion of the year, and then boom, they go on a run and they haven't lost in what is it, 13 or 14 games straight.
13
They haven't
games.
lost a game in like 300 days, I think I heard on the broadcast. So, as much as BC supporters, fans, whatever you want to call it, as high as we are, it is still early as crap, and injuries happen, like I mentioned. Stuff can happen, and I would hate for anything like that to happen and derail this season, because I think the Lions have all the recipe to punch their ticket to a Grey Cup and win it. That being said, it is only 6 weeks in, and we still have a lot of football to be played, and it is the best part about the sport, but also the scary part about the sport is anything can happen in football any given Sunday, especially when it's you're not playing a team in the playoffs in a 7-game series. You're playing them once on Saturday or once on Sunday, and that's it. You better bring your best stuff, or you could be eliminated, and it could be your off season as quick as that. So, just interested to see and excited to keep watching the parity in the league. And I think this game will be a really exciting one between two heavyweight in the West. So, personally, I think a little bit opposite of you, Blake. I think VA in the offense might start a little bit slow and then turn it on in the second half. Kind of a little bit opposite to how they played last game as well. How they jumped out of the gates. I think William Stanback scored on that seam route like 4 or 5 plays into the game.
Yeah.
I see them maybe Corey Mace, shout out to a Port Moody, I believe, born and raised, if I'm not mistaken, former Buffalo Bill as well for a brief stint. Don't believe he actually played in any regular season games, but I think spent some time with them in the preseason. We'll have those boys ready to go. We'll have them super motivated, like I mentioned, and Coach mentioned about Jameer Thurman, Roland Milligan. Those guys have been turning over the football like crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if VA only has one of those things so far this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they get one early on him. Slow the lines down in the first half, but then BC starts to find their form, go into the locker room. Jordan Maximic, here's what they're doing. Here's what we can do to attack that, and then they can hit the ground running in the second half and see how things see how things go from there. And I think the Lions will win a close one, maybe by 7-3 is what I'm going to go with. So I see a few. Let's get to it actually, but Ryan says it's so cliche, but I think whoever turns the ball over least will win. I think it'll be tight. I agree, Brian, with that as well. I think both defenses will try to be optimistic and take advantage of some of the throwing that both offenses like to do. So, Brian also says even the two winless teams are scoring points. It's been fun to watch every game. I agree. It has been fun to watch every game. I agree a lot. My hot take at the beginning of the 2024 season, an all West Grey Cup, he says. Sweet. Let's get to last one. Bobby. What's he say? Let's hope so, Jay. That would end the well, it's never happened before crowd out of East that routinely downplays the crossover. I think that'd be sweet. I would love to see I know we've seen it before.
Riders Lions.
I was gonna say Winnipeg. I know I feel like I have such a soft spot for Winnipeg. I don't know why, but because it's happened before and we've seen it so recently, but I would love to see a Winnipeg BC Grey Cup, and I would love to beat the piss out of them in the Grey Cup. I think that would be the ultimate way to hang, over their head. Because I think we built the rivalry the last few years with them, Blake. I think beating them in a Grey Cup would be the chef's kiss
Cherry on top
to closing out their dynasty. Because I think this is probably it in terms of the Zach Collaros-led dynasty. If they don't make it in the last few years, I think after maybe 2025, 26, they start to move on and look for another quarterback to lead the Dalton Schoen, Brady Oliveira type led Bombers. But in terms of this dynasty, who's been to 4 Grey Cups, 1, 2, I think this will be kind of hopefully the storybook, or not, I guess the storybook ending for BC fans, and the heartbreaking ending for Bombers fans. So let's get to our guest without further ado. But before we do, we got 75 people tuning in, Blake, across Twitter, across YouTube. For those who are tuning in on YouTube, please continue to let us know how you're feeling in the chat, like everybody has been doing here tonight. It's been awesome interacting with everybody as well. And most importantly, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I hear we are over 200 subscribers. So let's go for the first time on the channel. Super happy about that. When you guys subscribe to the channel, please hit the little notification bell. You guys will get notified every time Blake and I go live or we post any sort of content, whether that be the post-game recap shows, the Three Keys videos, anything like that. You guys will get notified anytime we post any sort of content here on the channel. And it's only going to get better from here on out, folks. I will be, at BC Place once again with a media pass, with, access to, on the field pregame, all that sort of stuff, watching the game from the press box. So, love to hear what you guys would love to see in terms of some content, stuff like that. Obviously, I'll be doing some more live tweeting as well as taking some videos from up in the press box. I think it's a good angle of seeing the better view than the broadcast copy. You can see things open up a lot better. So I'll obviously be uploading those when I can. I have a lot more from the Edmonton game. Just haven't had the time to sit down, go through them, and kind of give my thoughts on them. So maybe I'll try to do that on Saturday or Friday on the ferry over, something like that, just to give you guys another example of what I could be uploading and stuff like that on Twitter. So that's at my personal Twitter account. You can also see a few clips on the Canadian Football Fanatics Twitter account. That's at _CF Fanatics. And then my personal one is at Cole McGarvey. It's no spaces, COLEMCGARBEY. So Blake, let's get into it without further ado and bring up our last guest and basically third co-host at this point. But as always, folks, to close out the show, we will do our week 6 already. Week 6 CFL quick picks. And I believe Shane is joining us. Shane, how you doing, buddy? And thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. Always love being on the show.
Awesome, my man. Looking forward to another week of CFL quick picks where we give you guys our quick little preview of the games around the CFL, as well as give you our picks throughout the week. So I haven't given you guys a tally update in a few weeks. I know last week, as soon as me and Blake got done recording, I said, oh, shoot, I forgot to do that. So for those that aren't aware, I will give you an update. But Shane is 4 games back of Blake and I for just missing one show. But like I mentioned, he's pretty much a co-host at that time. At this point, he's been here 5 to 6 weeks so far. So I am in. Actually, let's go third to first. We'll leave the drum roll for the end. But Shane with 4 games minus, like I mentioned, is in last with a 9-7 record overall. I'm in second with a 12-8. And drum roll, please. Blake is in first place with a 14-6 record. So Blake with a 2-game lead over me, 5-game lead over Shane. With that being said, Shane's still right in there when it comes to the race of, if you kind of compare things, if you take away 4 of our games, I think Shane's record looks pretty good as well. We had a pretty much, so last week, Blake continued his hot streak. I believe he's maybe only predicted one wrong game here in the last few weeks, but he was 3-1 last week. I was 2-2, and Shane was 1-3 last week. So let's get into our CFL quick picks with our first game of the week. Tomorrow night, we have a game we've seen in the past in the last few weeks. We have Toronto going to Montreal this time and taking on Montreal 5-0. Not too sure we're going to go too long in this. I think it might be a clean sweep once again, but I will, not beat around the bush. I'm going to pick Montreal until they prove me wrong. I'm going to go with the Alouettes, and I will pass it to Blake. Who you picking and why?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Alouettes as well, Cole. I think Toronto, they kind of showed their cracks the last couple of weeks. Cameron Dukes, I'm still not super convinced on him. I don't think those 4 interceptions were all his fault, but a couple of them definitely were. And I think the Alouettes are just too good. So I believe for the first time in like 2 or 3 years, the Argos are going to slip below 500, and the Alouettes are going to continue their hot streak. They will be, 6-0 after this week, and
Correct.
continue to run the East.
6-0. What a start to the season and just a hot streak they've been on. I know I don't know if it was Brian or who put it in the chat, maybe it was Chris Agar, mentioned that, Sankey hasn't lost a game in Al's jersey yet. They haven't lost, like I was saying, a game in 300 days or something like that, they mentioned on the broadcast. The Owls are on an absolute heater right now, and if you're an Owls fan, all you got to do is just hope that they don't burn out and they can, take this all the way to a back-to-back Grey Cup, which we've seen it in the past, right? It's not unreasonable to think they can't keep going, but that being said, it is still early. But they have been, the class of the CFL here early on. But before we continue and get Shane's pick, I see a few people like Jay, obviously putting in his picks. For those of you that are chiming in the chat, like I know Bobby, expert better himself. All jokes aside, let us know who you're picking, why, maybe how you're betting, Bobby. Let us know in the chat. But if anybody wants to chime in, let us know your picks. Feel free. Jay has Montreal, Winnipeg, BC, Edmonton this week. All the home teams winning. I think Hamilton will remain winless this week. Interesting. We will get into that in a moment. So,
Well, they're on their bye, Cole, so
oh,
that's a given.
that's a good one, Brian. You got me there. That went right over my head. But I will go to Shane. Is it a clean sweep? Who you picking and why?
Yeah, I mean, last week was not a good week for me. If you went through my picks, I think I was like 2 for 12 on the week last week after, which is kind of annoying because I go through all the numbers. I try to keep everything, numbers based on my predictions. Like, okay, well, how's this team doing in this category? And it backfired. I think it was like my worst week I've had in probably like 2 years. So yeah, I was like 2 for 12 in my pick'ems. I was 1 for 3. Got my picks last week. So hopefully for a rebound this week. But I got Montreal. I think they've shown to be too dominant overall. Like their defense is arguably one of the best we've seen in recent CFL history. I think they're at this pace they're going to come down as one of the best in CFL history if they keep it up. And yeah, Cameron Dukes just hasn't moved the needle. There's clearly a step back from number 12 to Dukes. So we'll see. But I think this game is Montreal's to lose. Like they can come in, they'll dominate and go to 6-0.
I agree. I think even if they don't dominate, we could see something, maybe similar to last week versus Calgary. Maybe they're not winning for the entire game, but I think they know how to get it done right now. They're feeling very hot, and sometimes when you're feeling this hot, you can flip a switch late in the fourth quarter and rally late, get a win. I think maybe it's not trailing the whole game, but I think it's going to be more of a closer game. Maybe Montreal's not as dominant, but I think they get a win, and a win is a win. They stay undefeated. They still stay, ahead atop the CFL in terms of teams and how they've been doing. So let's get to game number 2, a little Friday Night Football. I can hear the theme music in my head. I
No, no,
love
no.
I love that. It takes me back to being a kid. I tell you, coming home on Friday and watching Friday Night Football was the best, especially because it always seemed like the Lions were playing on Friday nights as a kid growing up. So, let's get to Friday night, and we got a few guys picking here in the chat. Love to hear them. Yeah, Brian. Riders, good one. No, I'm just kidding. Let's get to Friday Night Football when Calgary travels to Winnipeg for another game that both teams have seen each other and played in recent weeks. I will go to, I guess I went last. I will let Blake go first. And Blake, who are you picking and why?
Man, this is a really tough game for me, but I think, and it's trending that Zach Claros will be back. He did not play the whole Calgary game the first time. He was knocked out in the first half, I believe. Even with Chris Streveler as the quarterback, the Stampeders just barely scraped by a couple weeks ago. So I think this time the Bombers will completely return the favor and win on their home field. As much as it pains me to say, I think for the first time all year, I am picking the Blue Bombers to win a football game.
Attaboy, Blake. Attaboy. You're coming over, buddy. Just know, like Shane mentioned last week, right? They are right in the goddamn thick of things. Where, Blake, have a little bit of confidence, though. Hey, have a little bit of confidence, pal. I don't believe they got the firepower to go with us this year because, unfortunately for them, they have a few injuries. Depending, maybe Kenny Lawler and Dembski are able to shoulder the load, and Wolotarski, but I don't love that receiving core as much as I did with, a guy like Schoen, who makes Wolotarski that much better as that fourth option, where he's seeing a lot of single coverage now, where, Wolotarski's up in the lineup. He's starting to, demand a little bit more attention, stuff like that. I don't believe he's able to sustain enough successes to, the three-headed monster that they've had in the last 3 years here with Dembski, Schoen, and I know Kenny's just gotten back there in the last years, but I think that's where BC and Sask are going to be able to have an advantage over them. I think they're a little bit deeper, and then on defense, like I mentioned, I think some areas that they're lacking as well. I think the Bombers get a victory this weekend. I think they get to 2-4. I think they leapfrog Calgary because I think they win by more than 3 points. Like you mentioned, Zach Claros is on track to play this week. Chris Streveler, not a good game, but not a bad game by any means. Led Winnipeg to their first victory of the season, so got to give him credit for that. That being said, if you're Winnipeg, you want Zach Claros back as quick as possible. And I think the key for them is Brady Oliveira and featuring him even more. If they're able to give him a workload similar to last week, I think good things will happen. I think he'll be over 100 yards once again. But I got Winnipeg. Blake has Winnipeg. And I will pass it to Shane. Who you picking and why?
I'm picking Calgary. I like when Winnipeg won last week, but they had 6 field goals. They had 1 touchdown. I don't necessarily look at I watched the game. And I wasn't able to watch it live. I was at Nickelback, Blues Fest in Ottawa, so I wasn't able to watch it live. So I watched it. I recorded it. I watched it on the Saturday. It's not necessarily that Winnipeg won the game. I think Ottawa just lost it. A lot of self-inflicted wounds, turnovers. When you give only 6 field goals, when you hold them into 6 field goals, you should be able to win a game. So I don't necessarily have high hopes on Winnipeg. I think Calgary is a more well-rounded team. I know there's injury concerns in the running position for Calgary that might sway things. I think it's going to be a close game, though. But I have Calgary winning overall because I have no faith in that Winnipeg offense to capitalize and move the ball and score touchdowns instead of field goals.
Yeah, I like it. I like that we're not. Someone had to switch it up and pick something different. I could see Calgary winning this game. I think Calgary's played well as well. I just think Winnipeg is unfortunately had some bad luck, as well as just not played good this season. But they have the pedigree to, not turn it on when they want to, but get on a run here, like you mentioned. Yeah, they kicked some field goals. They still won the game. Like I would kind of tend to agree. I think Ottawa somewhat lost the game, more so than Winnipeg won it. That being said, a win is a win in the win category. It'll make that locker room feel good. I know William Jefferson kind of alluded to that a little bit with his media availability in practice this week. I just, Jake Maier started the season good, and I don't think he's capitalized on that. I think he's kind of come back down to earth, and he's the same Jake Maier that we know and love. I think I was looking at the statistics earlier in the day, but I think he has one completion over 20 yards or something like that. Continues not to push the ball downfield. So I don't love what I see from them, and I think if Winnipeg can feature Brady Oliveira and do that again, that's the recipe to winning. Owning time of possession, running the ball into the ground. I think he had 20 carries with 6 or 7 catches, so around 25 touches, 120 something yards and a touchdown. I think is the way to get it done. I hope Winnipeg will get it done, but that's why they play the game, and we will soon see. So let's get to Saturday's game, which I think is going to be a great one. Another one that I think could go either way, but obviously I'm going to go with BC, like I mentioned in a little bit earlier with Coach Phil in my power rankings. I think BC is a better team, and especially without Trevor Harris as of now. With Shea Patterson, he, did obviously get a win. I believe he had 2 touchdowns, the one rushing, the one passing, but didn't have the greatest performance passing the ball. Started the game pretty slow. That being said, I know he is still adjusting to life in the CFL, being a starter. Although he's been up here for a few years, he's been kind of transitioning around through training camps, through practice rosters, all that stuff. Doing that, you're not getting many reps in practice. You're kind of more of a practice arm, if you will, and you're throwing a lot of drills, stuff like that. So not getting a lot of reps. He's kind of learning on the fly right now. So I feel like you have to give him a little bit of slack. That being said, hasn't impressed me. So I'm going to go with BC. I will go to Blake. Who you picking and why?
Oh, sorry, Cole. We're I'm gonna go with the Saskatchewan Roughhead. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. I'm gonna go with the BC Lions. The one of the main deciding factors is also that this game is at BC Place, and the Lions have just been so dominant at home the last couple of years. I find it hard to see them losing. I know they lost the one game or the 2 games last year. The one against Hamilton early-ish in the year, and then the one late against the Blue Bombers. But I think, as you said, Vernon Adams is just too good right now. He's on a literal record-breaking pace. Holland, McInnes, everything like that. I just think the Lions are so good, and the Lions are going to win a close one, but they are going to win this football game.
I agree. I'm curious to see who this is for Jay. I'm curious to see who Shane picked. So, like I mentioned, I think this is going to be um, a tight game. I could see this going either way. I just think BC has the edge as of now. Like we've been talking about, I see this being a one-score game into the fourth quarter. It could very easily be a Saskatchewan Roughriders that take it late, thanks to their defense making a play. Their defense has a whole lot of playmakers. But that being said, I think, like you mentioned, gives me a lot of confidence that BC's at home. They're coming off a game like they did in Hamilton. I think they're going to take it. But Shane, I'm curious to see who you're going to take in the BC and Saskatchewan game.
Man, I don't like picking against BC for 2 weeks in a row. But let's be honest, BC came out and dominated against Hamilton. Hamilton's defense was basically Swiss cheese. Vernon Adams was just picking them apart. I figured they'd put a more of a fight offensively. I was kind of hoping it would be a shootout, but it was not the case. But I think this is a battle between Vernon Adams, who is dominating right now. He has 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1,700 yards. He's led the league 3 straight weeks in passing, 4 times in 5 weeks. Just absolutely dominating. Versus AJ Ouellette, who has been running over teams. And I think I'm going Saskatchewan because they have an offense that can kill time, can keep VA on the sidelines for a long period of time. And that's how you need to beat BC is you keep VA on the sidelines. So I think
Yeah,
it's gonna
no,
be a close game. I think it's gonna be like a 4-point game. I think the spread is like 2.5 or 3.5. I think, it's probably gonna fall inside of that. But I think Saskatchewan takes it because if they can keep VA off the field and on that sideline, it should be their game to lose.
yeah, I agree. I think I don't agree with the Riders really being able to run the ball. I think as well as BC. I think William Stanback is second in the league in rushing behind Kadeem Carey, if I'm not mistaken, with 300 and something yards. If I'm not mistaken, I think AJ Ouellette, like we were talking about with Coach, hasn't had the best start to the season. I think when I checked earlier, he only had like 3 point something yards per carry. I thought if they could feature him a little bit more, which you're talking about, that's what I agree with. If they can feature him more, have a little bit more success. Coach Phil kind of talked about it, about not trying to run like you're being Saskatchewan, not trying to run like you have the Argos offensive line, which I think they've tried to do a little bit too much. But I think if they can have some success running the ball with AJ Ouellette, he has 229 yards so far this season, about 80 yards less than William Stanback, as well as a few, I believe, what's his receiving yards as well?
Yeah,
About 100 receiving yards as well. So he has about 330 all-purpose yards, AJ Ouellette. So he's been effective. I think he hasn't been as effective as maybe promised or as billed coming over this season. That's only my thing, and Coach Bill kind of alluded to it earlier. That's why I wanted to hear his thoughts on it, because we heard so much about him coming over in the offseason, about the Thor hammer, all this stuff. I thought he's looked okay, but I thought he's had another level to him, or maybe it's just how good he looked in Toronto for me. But I think it comes down to, like Shane said, if they can run the football, if they can keep BA in that offense off the field, I think they're going to get a turnover or two just with that defense, how opportunistic they've been. I think, like we were talking about with Coach Phil, they have 6 turnovers combined with Jameer Thurman and Roland Milligan. With Milligan having 3 interceptions, I think Thurman has 1 interception and 2 fumble recoveries. So those guys are turning over the football like crazy. I think it's just, unfortunately for BA, he has 1 pick in 6 games. I think the other team will get you every now and then. I think this is probably his game to have a turnover. I just hope it doesn't come in the fourth quarter, because Saskatchewan's a good enough team to hang around late, take advantage of a late fourth quarter interception, or maybe it's a fumble or sack fumble or something like that, and make sure that they win the game, kill the clock in the fourth quarter, because I think they have the recipe to do it. I just don't think I've seen it enough from them to have a little bit more confidence in AJ Ouellette and that run game to ice things away and keep VA and that offense off the field. But that's why they play the game. I think it'll be an interesting one. And I'm excited to be in the house watching the game. So let's get to the last one of the week, which I'm excited to hear Shane's thoughts. Hopefully he's not at any college this week. He's able to watch a good game, or I don't know. I guess we should see if it's going to be a good game or not, between Ottawa and
It
Edmonton.
won't.
I'll tell you what, folks, I am fed up with Edmonton, and I will just pass things over to Shane and let him talk about his Ottawa Redblacks before I give my pick. But Shane, who are you going with and why?
So this game, I think it's clear. I'm going to put it up right there. No bias on this game. Edmonton is a lot better than that 0-4 record shows, and Ottawa has played worse than their 2-2 record show. They went down to the wire, and both their wins at home against Winnipeg and Hamilton, they could easily be 0-4. Edmonton could easily be 4-0. So this game is a complete toss-up. Personally, I look at it, I'm like, okay, so you have a defense that has struggled versus an offense that has struggled. You've had a good offense versus a good defense. So overall, I think this is going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a back and forth game in terms of high action. Maybe not a very high scoring game, but there's going to be plays made. I have Ottawa winning by like 2.5 points. I think it's a last second field goal. But I expect it to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be like, I don't know, 34-31. It's just, I like what they've done offensively for Bethel Thompson. If Ottawa can somehow keep the ball from hitting the ground, they have 6 fumbles in 4 games. They have nine turnovers through their first 4 games, and 6 of them have been fumbles, and only one of them was their quarterback. So I think overall they need to hold on to the ball better.
Yep.
Edmonton doesn't really turn the ball over in terms of they don't generate a lot of turnovers. So if you can play clean, no matter who's quarterback, if it's Brown, Crum, or Adams, whoever is who is in the backfield, if they can play safe and like they're not forcing the ball, they're not putting the ball in dangerous situations, I think Ottawa can come away with a win and keep Edmonton winless.
So Shane, you got Ottawa then. You say it's a toss-up. I agree. But that being said, man, I am so done with the Edmonton Elks and putting any faith in them. For those that aren't aware, I picked the Edmonton Elks to finish third last year coming into the season. I had them, I believe, ranked fifth coming into this season. I had a lot of hope in them. But I just believe enough is enough, man. They are the Edmonton Elks for a reason, or just this version of the Edmonton Elks. I know they can get better. I hope they can get better. Honestly, like I mentioned about having a lot of or knowing a lot of good fans out there that deserve to watch some decent or better than what we've seen football. But man, they just I agree with Shane. They have had every opportunity to be even 500, 2-2, 3-1. They've had an opportunity to be way better than a winless team. That being said, history has repeated itself far, far, far too often if you're an Edmonton Elks fan, or like I mentioned, a supporter if you're like myself. Pick them highly coming into 2 years in a row. They continue not to win. They continue to do the same things over and over again. Lose games late, not know how to close out leads, get stupid penalties, random weird ways to lose games. So personally, I'm done picking Edmonton and having any faith with them until almost like Montreal until they prove me otherwise. I'm going to pick Montreal until they lose. I'm going to pick against Edmonton until they really until I go into the tankers in our pick'ems here every week, or they prove me wrong. Because I just think it's far too big of a sample size. I hate when you can maybe when you're comparing this year's team to last year, but it is way far too big of a sample size. Now, this team has gone back since Chris Jones has taken over, that they continue to lose games like this. They continue to be undisciplined. Like I mentioned on, I believe, was it the weekly show last week? He goes to the goddamn grocery store, brings home the food, cooks the dinner. He is the GM and head coach of the organization, has 100% control, and continues not to get results for the Edmonton Elks. So I am so over the Edmonton Elks and believing in them. I'm going with Ottawa. End of rant. I will pass it to Blake. Who are you picking and why?
Man, I don't know if this is my blind faith speaking, but especially if Drew Brown is not starting this week, I can't believe I'm going to say this again, and they're probably going to disappoint me again, but I am going to go with the Edmonton Elks for a lot of the reasons that you guys just said. They've been so close this year. They've lost twice to two of the best teams in the CFL. However you want to look at it, the last 2 weeks after they played Edmonton, Toronto has not looked like one of the best teams in the CFL. But if you're going by last year, if you're going by that guy that wears number 12, they're one of the best teams. BC has undeniably, for the last 2.5, 3 years, been one of the best teams in the league. They lost on a last-second field goal. They had a big lead late against Saskatchewan, and then they took the defending Grey Cup champions down to the wire. As a podcast I was listening to today said, eventually the Elks are going to win a game, even if it's just by accident. And I think this week is the week that it happens. I think finally Edmonton fans are going to have something to cheer about for at least 1 week until they probably get curb stomped again next week and go back to being the Elks. But I think that the Edmonton Elks beat the Ottawa Redblacks this week. Shane, I'm sorry, man. You're one of our best guests, our best co-hosts, but I gotta go against your Redblacks this week. I'm in first place for a reason, and I hope that the Elks are gonna prove me right.
I like I agree with you. That's the thing. Like I believe Christina made the she tweeted today too that they lost all 4 or 5 games or whatever by like 13 points or less or something like that. So I mean,
Combined, yeah.
I
It's almost
agree.
combined.
Yeah,
I agree.
they've
But
lost. They
but
lost their last three.
at the same time, somebody needs to figure out how to close games and win some of these tight games because then they could be 2-2 or 1-3 where they're in Winnipeg spot where they're right behind Calgary, right within striking distance, which they still technically are. If they get a win on Sunday, they
Yeah,
can be
especially if Winnipeg wins, they're
yeah,
a game back.
they can be right in the thick of things still. That being said, I don't have any faith in them because yes, they might win one game, let's say on Sunday, but then can they put anything more together? Like I feel like they just don't finish, like I mentioned. Yes, I hear you about them getting close, but in professional sports, there is no such thing as style points. There is no such thing as
Close only
uh,
counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
yeah,
That's
man.
what my dad
Yo,
always
see,
told me.
So
exactly. That's what I say all the time. And for Edmonton, that's been the case. You know, they had a lead. They had a lead against Saskatchewan. They gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter. Like, that's not necessarily coaching either. That's just player personnel.
They also led in the fourth quarter against BC.
Yeah, like at some point, it also doesn't go to coaching. Like, coaches don't execute
I
plays.
no, I
Turnovers
agree,
aren't
but he does. But like I mentioned, though, he goes to the grocery store, he's a GM and coach. So as much as he does, I agree with you. He doesn't deserve some of those like execution issues for some of those players. He's the one that brought the team in. Like he's the one that
for sure, but you
basically.
won't know. Like, he won't know how these guys are going to perform until they get onto the field, right?
Yep,
So
for sure. Yep.
So I give him at least this season because they've been competitive. They've been in every game. They've had a chance to win. They're not losing because of bad play calling. They're losing because their guys don't know how to finish games. And you can make the argument, oh, that is on coaching. You know, coaching should get you prepared, this, that, and the other thing. But they're not the ones who are losing the ball at your own like 10-yard line after a punt. Like, they're not the ones doing that. And if people want to throw blame on Chris Jones, again, I'm not the biggest Chris Jones supporter. When he left the CFL, I was more than happy, not going to lie. But at some point, you have to shift blame from the coaching to the players. And, you know, they brought in Sean Oakman, who should help on defense. You know, their offense has played well. They've been good play calling. At some point, the players need to step up and be like, hey, this is on us. If we're not going to perform, you know, at some point, it's no longer on coaching. At some point, it's on the players. It's not like Ottawa last year where it was, or 2 years ago, where it was visibly like the play calling wasn't great, the execution wasn't great, but you know the play calling was visibly an issue. Like, they were predictable, they were easy to read, they were easy to game plan against. So at some point, it needs to turn from coaching to players.
I agree. I think that's the if you're an Elks, I guess like I'm calling myself supporter, but if you're a fan, that's probably the most frustrating part is because you can't really pinpoint one single thing of why we lost. I feel like you could literally put blame on almost everybody in that organization. Of
Yep.
yes, I did. Yes, maybe I have some good things where some MBT is playing great. Curly Gittens Jr., Hergy Miles kind of started the year. I know he's hurt right now, but they've had some good spots. But at the same time, it's like they can't get Geno Lewis involved. They can't get Kevin Brown going. They can't win close games. It's like you can't pinpoint one or a few things of why this keeps happening. It's just compounding issues, and that's why I have no faith in them because they maybe they win a game here in the next few weeks, but I just don't believe they can put it together for a full season, get wins consistently. Yes, they're right in the thick of things.
Playoffs.
I, I hope they prove me wrong. I will gladly be proven wrong. Maybe I'm the issue. Maybe I'm the mush that, once I'm off the bandwagon, they start going on games. I will gladly get off the bandwagon and watch the Lions beat the piss at Edmonton anytime they come to BC. That's here nor here nor there. But I think that'll probably kind of close out our picks of the week. Shane, to recap, you had Montreal, Calgary, Saskatchewan, and Ottawa.
I
Blake
will say
had What's that, sorry, Shane?
I will say whoever wins this week loses next week because they're in a back-to-back. And just history says that whoever wins one game loses the next game.
Ottawa.
Either way, Edmonton's going to get a win by the end of week 7, by history standards.
Ottawa and Edmonton are on a back-to-back?
Yeah, Ottawa's next 2 games are against each other.
So, and then it's in Ottawa the next week then?
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm interested to see, because, as much as I don't believe in Edmonton right now, this is a great opportunity for them to get 2 wins, put themselves into the conversation. At the same time, this is a great opportunity for Ottawa to get 2 wins, put themselves into, like we were talking about earlier, who's kind of that second team in the East. I know you have confidence in the Ottawa Red Blacks, Blake, but this is a great opportunity for either team to either get 2 wins and kind of propel themselves forward and get some momentum, or maybe they split. We will see.
He'll definitely make an impact on if some team can sweep this series.
Yeah,
He'll definitely make a positive impact for that team, and then seriously hurt the other.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
the only reason I have so much confidence is in Ottawa is because the other 2 teams in the East are that bad, at least in my opinion.
yeah,
See,
I think
if Toronto can be a 500 team until number 12 comes back, and if they're serious about putting him at starting quarterback, like Dinwiddie said they were, he has enough talent to will that team into like an 8-1 record to finish the year. So I'm not really like Toronto needs to stay 500 to have a chance at that second or even the first spot in the East.
yeah, I kind of agree. I think Toronto's more of a TBD more so than anything. What's the damage once Chad Kelly gets back? Oh, I just name drop. Once he gets back, and then
Come on.
also is there any effects? Like, is there any splits in that locker room? I don't believe so, especially because of the caliber of player he is. Unfortunately, for people that don't want to hear it, if you're a better player, you get away with a lot more. That's just facts. And I would imagine Chad Kelly will be welcomed back in that locker room with open arms. But I'm curious to see, is there maybe a little bit of tension, and is he able to pick back up with his MOP form right away? I think Cameron Dukes, I'm a little bit higher on him than maybe most, especially after this last week. And I think we'll be able to keep them 500, like Shane's alluding to. And then it's just what can number 12 do from here on out on the final stretch of the Argos season. So that'll conclude this week's CFL Quick Picks. Shane, before we get you out of here, let the people know where they can find you on social media and the content on 13th Man website.
Yeah, I mean, find me on Twitter as always, @star_designs_. I might change it soon, so maybe next week will be different. But yeah, 13th Man always. I mean, we got these guys going. Hoping to have a couple more creators coming on over the next little while as we roll into different seasons. But yeah, there's gonna become some changes to the site coming up over the next little while that I'm excited to start planning and start working on. Yeah, I mean, I obviously like being part of this, so I'll always be on Wednesday unless I'm feeling sick, which was unfortunate for that 1 week. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I'm on Twitter for the most part.
Awesome, Shane. Thank you so much, buddy, and we'll chat on a Wednesday next week.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for increasing my lead, Shane.
And that was Shane Ryan of 13th Man Sports, everybody. Thank you to Shane for coming on here, hanging out, giving us his picks as always on the channel. So before Blake and I get out of here, about an hour and 38 minutes in, Blake, we're at 92 viewers right now. Can we push to 100 triple digits, folks? Let's try in the final few moments here. For those that are tuning in, please like, comment, subscribe. You guys can follow us on Instagram at Canadian Football Fanatics, as well as Twitter @_CF Fanatics. And then, as always, if you're tuning in on YouTube, subscribe, hit the little notification bell, and you guys will get notified every time we go live or upload any sort of content here on the channel. Blake, any final thoughts, buddy? Another good show. Flew by as always. 6 weeks pretty much down. I can't believe it. Or 6 weeks worth of shows down. We still have 4 games to watch this week before we officially tie a bow and things. But how are you feeling? And are you looking forward to this week of games?
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. I think that it was kind of crazy. Somebody was talking to me at work today that we talk about football regularly, and he's like, oh, who did the Lions play after the Riders? And I had to think about it for a sec because it's kind of cliche, but like we heard Julio even talk about it when he was on the show a couple weeks ago that the season's broken down into like 6 game segments, and like even as a fan, I kind of subconsciously did that. I was like, I don't know, like I've gotten to this Riders game, and then after that, we'll just take it from there because this is already week 6. But yeah, no, it's been fun. It's been very fun that the Lions have been good again, and I hope that they can take first this week and not relinquish it till the end of the season.
I agree. I have a funny comment I have to bring up from Brian. I saw it earlier, but I didn't want to bring it up. But you gotta sing it in the Nickelback voice. But he says, "Look at Ottawa's quarterback. Every time I look, it makes me laugh." And I
That
definitely
was pretty
mentally
good, Cole. Wow, you
you
could
like
be
that,
like a
eh?
backup singer for Nickelback. Yeah, no,
Dude,
that was
big,
good.
big Nickelback guy, big Chad Kruger guy, obviously a BC guy. My dad living in Abbotsford actually sold him a couple TVs, working at Future Shop throughout the years. So big Chad Kruger guy, big Nickelback guy. I would love to back up or whatever bands you call it, but just to catch up on a few people from the chat before we get out of here. Brian once again with another good one. Says poor Dom Rhymes went from the best receiver in the league to third option on a lackluster offense. Tough one is right. Bobby, I saw this one earlier too. Said don't lose hope, Cole. I still got them fifth. Man, Bobby, they slid so fast in ninth place. I couldn't even lie in my power rankings. I know a lot of people were angry with me. I think Blake was as well about Edmonton. But man, I am so done with the Edmonton Elks. It's unbelievable. Um, Especially because I was I think, watching the game in BC Place on 2 Thursdays ago, watching them melt down, watching them have a 9 play, 100 and something yard drive, take the lead in the fourth quarter over BC, who was dead at that point, pretty much, not having any success offensively, not really any momentum, and then boom, they lose the game still. And it's like, man, the Elks are just the Edmonton Elks for a reason. And I don't know, I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to sum it up any other way. But a few other ones just to catch up. Chris Jones is a good D coordinator and bad everything else. I agree with that. Um, Then obviously, like I said, I saw Bev. Hi, Bev. Hope you're doing well. Hope to see you soon. I know Raiders are starting up here in a few weeks. I believe they're on the road in Prince George, if I'm not mistaken. As you can see, I got my gear on because the boys are underway here soon. I believe they're actually at practice right now. They are. I think they picked off practice 6 to 8:30 tonight. So I don't think those boys are sweating their what's off right now. And I don't miss some of those practices in the heat. I would imagine it's super brutal when your colors are black. You're wearing a black helmet, black practice jersey, that sort of stuff. But Bev, hope to see you soon. Hope you're doing well. And then Jay says, Shane, are you coming to Touchdown Pacific? I don't believe he is, Jay. I think that would be an expensive trip across the country for Labor Day because he's already coming out for Grey Cup. But maybe Shane can make it swing and come out here for Touchdown Pacific as well versus Ottawa Redblacks. But not too sure if he's able to. We'll ask him next time he's on the show. Blake, is there any final thoughts from you before we close out the show?
No, I think you ask me this every week, and I have pretty much the same response every week. But let's kick off the week in Montreal, and then we'll finish off the week in Edmonton, and we'll talk to you guys for a post game sometime on Sunday. You and I will have to figure that out as I'll be kind of in Edmonton, but should be able to make the post game this week.
Yes, sure. So, 1 second here, folks. I was never good at walking and chewing gum, guys. I got to pause the brain for a second, focus. But yeah, Bev says, looking forward to the season opener. Me too, Bev. And Brian says, I hope you enjoy the Green Machine when they roll over the lines on Saturday. I know Blake's already friends off some people. So, Brian, we can, I guess, officially friends off from now until, maybe 7:30 Pacific time on a Saturday afternoon. It is on, my friend. looking forward to it. Like I said, I think it's going to be a good game.
Jackson.
And looking forward to it. Brian, if you're on social media, get at me and Blake. We'd love to hear from you throughout the game, that sort of stuff. And Brian, are you from Saskatchewan? Or do you live in Saskatchewan? Or are you from BC? If you're from BC and coming to the game, let us know. We'd love to catch up with you and maybe grab a little beverage or something like that. But before we get out of here, a last reminder, folks, I will have a media pass once again for the game on Saturday. So if anybody that follows me on, my personal account at Cole McGarvey on both Instagram and Twitter, or the podcast account on Twitter or Instagram, once again on Instagram at Canadian Football Fanatics, on Twitter at _CF Fanatics. If you guys want to get at me, let me know what kind of content you would love to see. I'm going to probably be doing some more of the same, like I mentioned, the videos from up top in the press box, as well as, maybe following a position group or two on the field pregame. Like I said, I'm going to have some access down on the field pregame, so I'll be able to take in warm-ups, all that sort of stuff, up in the press box watching the game, and then after the game, able to ask Coach Campbell and whoever the players are made available some questions. So please let me know what you guys would love to see and watch. Obviously this content is a big part of it's for you guys, right? And the consumers and stuff like that. So I'd love to hear some of the behind the scenes content you guys would like to see. Like I mentioned, going to be doing some more of the same. Blake, is there anything I don't think I asked you? Is there any sort of content you would like to maybe see in terms of what I was doing? I don't know if you saw the the on the field. I was following some of the linebackers D line. Do you think that was cool? Would you like to see something like that again?
Yeah, no, I definitely would like to see something like that again. I know that you and I kind of both did that when we were up in Kamloops for
Yep.
training camp. So I think it's cool to see how the different position groups warm up and practice and stuff like that. So maybe go with a different group every game or something like that.
Yeah, we'll think of something, and stay tuned, folks. It should be a good time. Like Blake mentioned, you guys can see us once again on a BC Lions postgame show, as well as we will catch you guys next Wednesday night. We appreciate everybody for tuning in on the Canadian Football Fanatics Weekly Show. Have a good weekend watching some more Canadian football this weekend, folks. We hope the weather is beautiful wherever you are, and see you guys next Wednesday night.